Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Restore the Republic. It's good to see you. With always, I got, I'm Andrew Ike, Sheriff of Richland County, Ohio, soil jurisdiction. And like I was saying, with me, as usual, Sheriff Adam Bonner on Summit County, Ohio, soil jurisdiction. How you doing today, Adam?
Great. How about you?
Doing pretty good. I've been doing a lot of researching on different topics. There's a lot to this. A lot of information.
Oh yeah, tons of it.
Well, today I want to talk a little bit about the American Civil Peace Flag. We have it. I have it flying behind me. A lot of people might have seen it. I sporadically see it around the neighborhoods and around the county, and I'm not sure if people are aware of what it is or what it exactly means. So we're going to jump into that today a little bit, try to see what we can come up with. So question to you would be, when did our country first see this flag?
Well, the country historically, around 1767, I believe, the Sons of Liberty flew it as a rebellion against the Stamp Act. So basically, they took it and turned it on its side, then flew it on the Liberty Tree in Boston. And it was basically supposed to be an act of rebellion. And, there wasn't any American war flag at that time. So the vertical stripes were declared to represent individual sovereignty over the King of England at the time. So then you fast forward 10 years later, 1777, that's when Old Glory came about. So that would be, I believe, the one that we see flying now. That's the war flag, or what's considered the war flag. I guess one of the most famous things you would recall is there was a hill during World War II where you see the soldiers supporting the four men that went up and raised the flag when they took over that particular area in the campaign. So what we know is that the horizontal stripes were adopted for use over military posts, while vertical stripes were adopted for civilian posts. So like where you would see militias or reeves, peacekeepers, we'd fly those type of flags around our post. That's basically just signifying the Americans are here.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, and you was mentioning something about you used to see them around your city.
Yeah, up until just prior to Chevron back in the early 80s being lost, which had been going on since somewhere in the 40s. And then somewhere around 83, they knew that they were going to lose. And ultimately by 85, it was shot down, which it was recently overturned.
Yeah.
But back in 2024, in June, I believe, something like that, 2023. And so all that aside, I recall seeing it in the early 80s, downtown Akron. I believe it was flying over top of Old Glory at the time. I was just a kid, and I was like, what's that? Why is that there? So,
historically, well, in a reference, that book, The Scarlet Letter, they refer to civil peace flag in that book.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was the author of that book?
I didn't learn about it until years later. I mean, luckily I had a PhD social studies teacher who just loved to share little tidbits, and she showed us that stuff in grade school. So it just stuck with me over the years. And so when I seen it resurface, I was like, yeah, there's more to that. I better go research it. And so when I did personally, I just found out that that's what's tied to Americans, not 14th Amendment U.S. citizens.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, we're going to, I guess, start seeing more of them. I'm trying to get around my county and let people know what it's all about. That it is the peace flag. It's, I want to talk to veterans. I want to talk to anybody who listen really, about how, we have the war flag and everybody knows that one. But being an American and in the land and or soil jurisdictions, we're at peace. The American government is at peace. The U.S. government, now that's a different story. We don't know what the hell they're doing, but yeah, we're at peace and we want people to get used to seeing this flag.
Right. Yeah. So many people are unaware of it. I've had a few neighbors say weird things, and it's like they don't know their history. I've had people knock on the door and see the flag flying, and they're like, "Is that ours?" And so luckily I caught that like 2 or 3 times on the Ring camera, and I was like, yes, actually it is. That was here before Old Glory.
Yeah.
You guys don't learn about that stuff in public education systems. So anyhow, I said, if you guys want a printout of the history on it, I'd be happy to get it for you. Oh, we're just here to, giving out flyers for new windows, new roofs or whatever. They don't care.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
So, yeah, what were these? What are flags used for, really?
Well, I mean, obviously, we see the commercial militaries use them for various things. They could have their logos or whatever their crests are, but it could signal meetings for the people. The American people could use them for that. So if you see an American civil peace flag, you would know that you're going to be amongst people, not U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
They could be used for meetings dealing with protests, rally supports against British taxation, for instance, since that's where it originally came about. And then, we know that the British outlawed it, making it even more iconic to us. So, when you see it, don't be weirded out by it. There's nothing nefarious behind it or its intent. Chances are you have somebody who's very well studied on American history, and that's it. Or you have a peacekeeper amongst you. So that's
I've been telling all the people that I meet, it's for unity. It's not for being divisive or separate, separation of different parties or anything. It's all about unity, all about peace, all about people changing their political statuses back to American. Come back to the land and soil where you belong.
Right. Yeah, I feel that's important for people to know. I mean, there's thousands and thousands and millions, that are coming onto this. Every month you go back and look at the numbers. I mean, all over the world, people are realizing what's going on. They're starting to do the research. They're awakening, and peacekeepers come into play to be able to make people aware on the commercial side of things in the sea jurisdiction. We are here to keep the peace. We do not want civil unrest. There's a lot of people that are fit to be tied as it is. Just over the last 6 years, what's gone on. And we find ourselves as peacekeepers right there, in the front line, having to go out here and try to interface and get the information out. And whether it's taken serious or not, that seems to be something that we can't really look at right now, because we're trying to keep the peace and keep people from doing all kinds of things once they come aware of what's happened and what's going on. So it's going to be a realization that the commercial side is going to have to come to the table and discuss at some point or another. We're just trying to do our job, just like they're trying to do their jobs, and at least we have that as common ground to meet in the middle. And if you see us out and about, or we're trying to schedule meetings, it would probably behoove anybody that we're reaching out to. There's a reason behind it, for them to work with us and collaborate amicably, so that way we can kind of educate them and offer services that they don't have in their jurisdictions.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the education part, though, because it seems like a lot more people are starting to read the history, where they're remembering things and where you can get the real stuff. There's a lot of people out there that just watch videos, and it's a video of someone saying something, passing it on to another person saying something, and you're getting a gobbledygook of all kinds of crap.
Right.
History's been written down, and it needs to be read.
Right. So for me, what other than military manuals and UCMJ type stuff and flag law, that just was like a precursor. Studying all the commercial law or legal books, administrative law, contract, commercial law, that type of stuff, I realized something was significantly wrong and missing. That it was not following the Bill of Rights. It was not following constitutionality. It wasn't even close. And then I noticed that various types of UCC were being used to fill the gaps whenever they didn't have the answers. Let's just throw that stuff in there to bridge the stuff together. And I was like, this is pretty foreign to Americans. This is legal jargon that has to do with dead entities. At some point, I started thinking, how twisted is this to, I guess, identify people as things and, that they're not living.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I should be talking to psychologists across the country to get to the bottom of it. Like, are you assessing these people for these type of things? Or, like, I'm serious. This is...
Hey, sometimes it baffles me too, because, right in these contracts that we gave to our subcontractors that they have to obey, the constitutions, anybody can pick it up, read it, and it'll tell you we are guaranteed a Republican form of government. Now, in the past, I've made videos and you can check them out in the past. I did one over something about the Republic, and I just mentioned about the Pledge of Allegiance, and to the Republic for which it stands. So these things line up, and it just baffles me how people don't put the dots together and say, how many times do we got to watch these foreign actors on TV sit here and tell us we have a democracy?
It's a world stage. I've been saying it for many years.
Insanity.
I'll tell you what, that is a hot topic. I get lots of chatter, whether it's over the radio or, hey, they keep talking about this democracy, and it's like, that's their thing. All of that stuff in which is set up and based off of fraud, deception practices. It's a stage. And if you want to know our true history, it's kind of expensive because here in the U.S., on the commercial side, they like to hide that type of stuff and make it super expensive. But there are other countries that have original Congressional Globes. You could probably find archives through bookstores in other countries. And they're going to have a lot of our stuff saved because they archive it, as they should. And you'll find yourself going, well, I'm not paying $1,200 for this book here. They got it for $80 over here. Seems to me pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that's another one. Even, you check out the Congressional Globe. I've looked at Congressional Record a lot, and it's a long read, but right in there they can tell you and show you word for word coming from these guys back in the day that were in DC talking about this stuff. And the 14th Amendment was never ratified, and they show you right in it what states voted for, what states voted against. And another thing that baffles me,
Well, to correct some things I've misconstrued earlier on. I mean, I was very early on into the Congressional Globe reading. So when I talk about the Act of 1781, it was repealed 4 years later. So, that got shot down, luckily for the people. So we got to be a people for a short while longer until, the radical commercialization of a people into a thing, legal fictions, thanks to this guy named Abraham. But I've got 3 or 4 Congressional Globes sitting right beside me. I'm constantly going back and researching stuff in those because I want to be specific in particular when I'm talking about certain topics. Like if we have to go out and interface, it's pretty smart to have that type of stuff. Like even if you have to take a screenshot,
Yeah.
if that's what you got to do, because I mean, you're not going to be able to find the majority of that stuff just here out in the open. I remember years ago having to use somebody's access badge to get into the cage at the library just to be able to access certain types of law books because regular people aren't allowed to get that type of stuff anymore. So I don't know what that's about. It seems like that's a deprivation of rights, but
they're trying to hide it. But I think they ran out of time. We're back.
I mean, think about it like this. How many people have actually went to yard sales or flea markets over the years and stumbled onto stuff and just purchased it, and they have it in their homes and they're not even aware, or maybe they are, but they just don't know where to look or who to talk to about it. So we know that is a realization too. There's a lot of people out there with all kinds of stuff. There's tons of things on eBay just for people to go get in a ruse through.
Yeah. Well, one other thing about our flag, I think a lot of people refer to it as the common law flag.
Mm-hmm.
Represents that, and it was one of the earliest flags to use the red and white stripes. So, that's something, because Old Glory came 10 years later. And, I think that was Washington was the one that needed that, right, for the military, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if we want to be more specific about it, it represents American common law, to be specific. A lot of states prematurely, while we were still, 13 colonies, and, before that all turned into states, some of those states prematurely adopted English parliamentary common law and its principles. So Commonwealth states primarily, but Ohio said, no, we're not going with that. We've been here, and there are already people here. I feel like we shouldn't be subjecting anybody to parliamentary rule, which is under the rule of king or crown. So they went ahead and they took some of those principles and then they took it and ran with it, but they made it specific to here in America, to the Americas.
Yeah.
So that, I don't really want to go too far off into the deep end with that. I mean, we could talk about that stuff for hours, but
well, I wanted to get out too that, some people look at it and some people that I've talked to kind of, well, where did this come from? They sort of felt like it was made up. And I'm like, no, there's plenty of other flags that people are aware of, like that Gadston flag, it's the yellow flag with the rattlesnake. Says, right. Don't tread on me. Everybody knows that. And that was used, in the Americas, in North America, in the colonies.
I see those all over the southern states and out in the Midwest. When I was in Missouri for a while and in Texas for a while, they were everywhere. If not a flag, then they had some type of placard or sticker. They were all over the place. So
I guess the people are tired of being treaded on,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Metallica made a song about it. Don't tread on me.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll tell you what, I wanted to read a little paragraph from, this is an actual quote from our fiduciary of the Federation. And she was writing an article, and she was talking about when she was a kid and how her grandparents, they would, during Memorial Days, they would pick flowers, take them to the grave sites of some of these veterans and stuff, and she was just kind of remembering when she was young and how it went. And it kind of struck my interest, so I read it, and it's a really nice read. But I want to read this quote from her, and it's about the flag. So here it is. When I fly the civil peace flag with vertical stripes, it is with a catch in my heart for Old Glory, but also with certainty that the Republic flag is mine and that the peace is mine. It's a peace, not a war, that I have always fought for. It's in the land and the people that I care about. not for the foreign adventurism of USA Inc. My life has come and gone like a parade, a Penelope of sight and sound. In that time, I have learned a great many things that I had to bear. But one of the hardest to accept is simply this: I was betrayed by those I trusted to run my government. I present in the present day, only a few elected officials stand tall as representatives of what our founders had in mind. And it is painfully apparent that once again, we must all take the responsibility to govern ourselves and to organize our communities and re-educate our children and take up the reins of our lawful government, inform our militias, and remember who we are. Americans, baby. That's
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when we really get into the thick of it, they really are just governmental contract service providers.
Yeah.
If they are not providing services that are in the best interest of we the people, you do have Americans amongst you, then we do have a right to redress any one of your agencies, period. Doesn't matter what you think about it. If Party A calls the cops on Party B, that doesn't mean that Party B's constitutionally guaranteed and protected rights are non-existent because somebody called. And that's something that we need to address. In fact, we're going to address that a little later on. So looking forward to that.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for coming. Shout out to your social medias. What do you got?
The Reeves Talk Shop 44 on Rumble. Obviously, Restore the Republic. We're a little bit behind. We got a lot of editing and a lot of stuff like that to catch up on, but we'll get there.
Well, there you go, folks. Catch Adam over there at his podcast on Rumble, and check out Restore the Republic on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Absolutely.
So that's it. Hey, Adam, thanks for stopping by.
No problem. See you next time.
Yeah. We're out of here. America's coming back. Well, it is back.
Yeah,
all right, guys. We'll see you next time. Adam, have a good day.
Hey, you too.
Peace and love to everybody.